everybody who uses a chuck can automatically eyeball their jaw openings, right? There is a way to cheat. Some of you have seen these before. Gary has. In a machine shop, this would be called a go, no-go gauge. What it does is tell you the maximum and the minimum size of the jaws on that chuck that you're using. So you don't have to try to take it off and then realize 90% of the time it's either going to be too large or too small, which means then you start over. So we have a way to go. Now I'm making a smoothing cut. After I have that bevel rubbing cut, I just roll the tool up on its side on the diagonal, and I'm making a shear scraping cut. That is not to remove masses of wood, that is to smooth masses of wood. And when you're working with a piece that has bark on it, you have to be very careful. Burn a piece of bark fly. Anybody get it? We're throwing the wood, Gary. Too many gremlins in this shop. Now I'm preparing the tenon for the chuck. Remember, you don't want it in the position, and if the jaw has to move a little bit laterally as it tensions the wood, it won't move if that pin is securing it. The ball acts like a U-joint. If there has to be any lateral movement as you're tightening it down, the golf ball allows it to do that. This way, I can leave the ball in position as well, and it'll be a security device while I'm continuing to rough out my blank. Just cut a little cave, a little coved area, or a little cutout in your golf ball. Slide it over the nose of your tailstock, and that's your third hand for your Novichok. We only have one camera that's working tonight, folks, so I'm sorry about that. I can make that same shear scraping cut on the backside to true it up. And since you can't see what I'm doing, I'm not going to do very much of it. That's good enough. He said so. Now, we have our wings. In this particular case, we have the bottom of the bowl, which you will see shortly, sticking through it just a little bit. So now I'm ready to go to the top and start worrying about how it's going to look in its finished shape. Got to be a brute to operate one of these white legs.
You could have a VB.
You put too much pressure on it.
That's even worse.
I thought you'd say that. Jamie, I thought you'd say that. But you told me.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that with Studley. Now, this is where the fun begins. This is where you have to start thinking about what the design is really going to look like. And I'm going to have to get rid of some material pretty rapidly here. Now there are two ways to approach this cut. The easy way and the hard way. And you have to do both. The reason is we're going to be saving an area here in the center that has bark on it. So that means I have to leave this particular part untouched, but I also have to relieve all of this area down here and then get out to the wings without tearing it apart. So that's where it gets to be tricky. And it's going to have to use the hard cut, no way around it. Nobody said anything. I'm standing here with the tool in my hand, moving the tool rest with the machine on, and nobody said anything.
We probably all do it.
Yeah. Now this is when the chips are really going to fly. Now ash is not the most user-friendly wood for this because it's very coarse-grained. Now this is when I can make this cut using it as a shear scraping tool. Make sure that that cutting edge where it contacts the wood is on the diagonal, not up flat, because that's just like sticking a straight chisel into it. It will catch, and then you have firewood. It's a good idea to stop every once in a while and check to see that your cut is going uniformly. This side shear scraping cut allows you to remove small amounts of wood, but it also creates a flat surface so that when you're cutting, you don't have a whole bunch of little grooves down in here because that creates more sanding. Now, we're starting to get the shape of the wings across all four sides. That's a fairly okay thickness. Here again, ash is not one of those woods that keeps its bark real well, so I wasn't too worried about that. We'll talk about keeping the bark on when we get to the bowl. But now we have to figure out how we're going to shape this bowl. Now we're not going to be having big chunks of wood fly anymore. Piece of wood. You can't do one big cut, do two small ones. Now I'm getting myself into a real bind here. This is where you have to be a little bit inventive because the shape dictates what tool you can use to make the cut. That's what makes it difficult. This is making a reverse curve into the wing that I have to match up with the bottom. It doesn't always work out, but we're going to try. That is nasty wood. Now see, I'm starting to try to match the contour of the top to that piece down at the bottom, and I can see the profile on both sides. It's very important that you have good lighting when you're doing a process like this, because if you can't see the ghost image of those wings up there,